Inside the Plan with the 401k Brothers is a production of Horizon Retirement Plans, a division of Horizon Financial Group. Bill and Andy Bush are indeed brothers, but are not twins. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Inside the Plan with the 401k Brothers. Brother Bill here.
And Brother Andy.
Andy, how are you?
Bill, really good.
Andy, as we record this, we are about to embark on what's become a regular trip for us.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a tradition.
Yeah, and that tradition is, of course, going up to the Kentucky Derby.
Now, guys, always the first Saturday in May is the Kentucky Derby.
So the next time somebody says, yeah, when is the Derby?
Sure, yeah.
Now you know.
Yeah, first Saturday in May.
And so this year, a special trip for us in that we're bringing our mother with us.
And all of us born in Louisville, Kentucky, which is where the Kentucky Derby's run.
Correct. On the first Saturday in May.
Churchill Downs on the first Saturday in May. And our mother, who is going to be 82 later this summer, has never been.
Yeah, never been to the Derby. She now, of course, lives in Louisiana. So that made things a little tougher because we moved from that area up there to Louisiana in the late 70s.
Yes.
But it's a great opportunity. It's one of her bucket list things.
It is
to go to the Derby.
Yep. And she's getting to go with 3 of her 5 charming sons and her daughters coming.
Yeah, that's right. So it's going to be a family adventure for us. We've got the outfits picked out.
Yes.
The last pieces will be coming in the next couple of days, but very excited about that.
Yeah. And if you don't know, we usually don the LSU colors and want to represent while we're up there. And
which are purple and gold and white.
For those that don't know.
Yes. First Saturday in May.
All right. Right. An interesting parallel to the Derby is some folks get into what we call the performance Derby, right? When it comes to investments. And that's a big shift, a big pivot. But it is important to note that the Derby itself, it's like the 12th race of the day.
Yeah.
And so there's a good build up to it. It's also a quick race, right? It's 2 minutes and a couple seconds, right?
What do they call it? The most exciting 2 minutes in sports.
Yep. And so even the worst horse is done in about 2 minutes and 15 seconds, right?
Pretty much. Yeah.
And it's a quick flash. And so when it comes to investing, you want to somewhat run with the pack and know what the averages are, all right?
Yeah.
What the average race is, so to speak. You're not always looking for the fastest horse out of the gate, because a lot of times that horse does not win, right? They're much more of a sprinter out of the gate instead of a pace type of horse.
That's something we talk about when we do education to our retirement plan participants is we'll take a look at, hey, what is the top performing asset class in these particular years, going back maybe 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
And it's rarely the same one has finished on top for many years in a row. But
every year.
That's correct. Yeah. So some asset class may rise to the top in one year, next year not so much. But does happen if you have what's called the asset allocation, where you're mixing your investments over many assets, is you ride in the middle of the pack.
Yeah, that's very true. And so if you ever watch the Derby, you'll notice the change in leadership throughout that race. That short 2 minutes, there's a change in leadership typically. And that's what happens in investing. And so what you're looking for is, instead of spending so much energy and time on trying to analyze what might happen, which you have no guarantee it will happen because nobody has a crystal ball, and really there's no way of doing that to know exactly what's going to happen, but is to understand that, man, if I just got the average, and what would that return look like for me as far as my assets? How would they grow? And what would those dollars look like when I hit 65? You can back yourself into that and say, okay, if I put in X and I average this, then I should have this amount of money when I want to retire, and it's going to equal a good retirement for me.
Yeah. And so back to the Derby analogy, it is, as we said, a quick race, 2 minutes, but the distance of that race is 1.25 miles. And so where we've been fortunate enough to sit the last 4 or 5 times that we've been to the Derby is right on the rail after the finish line.
Yeah.
So
right by the first turn.
So what they do is they'll start on the stretch at the very end. They'll run past the finish line and then do another lap. So that distance is 1.25 miles. So we get to see the horses a few times on their way to the starting gate. That run that first time around, and then as they finish. And so rarely is it, hey, the horse that got to the first to where we were sitting was leading is going to win. That's just who happens to be leading at that particular time.
Yeah, that's the kind of the sprinter out of the gate.
Yeah.
And so it's there's some good analogies there of making sure that you're not eyeing the hottest thing. And so some folks in retirement plans will say that I've gotten this so many times where they will say, what kind of interest does that fund get? And they think they equate the return or the average past performing return to be the actual quote interest rate going forward. That's not always true, especially for short terms. If you're looking at a 1 year or 3 year, we may have just been in a very rapidly growing economy and stock market. Whereas if you look more at the longer term, the 10-year, 15 or 20-year terms, where over the last 20 years, we've experienced some decent pullbacks and dips and things like that. And I think it's important to understand the smoothness of those longer terms.
Yeah, it's that zooming out we talk about. Don't get caught in that particular moment for sure. Another interesting thing, just to pivot here.
We're pivoting.
Is that I came across, because we often talk to participants about not just the 401k, but other vehicles that might serve them well once they get to retirement. And one of those that really doesn't get a lot of attention is HSAs. So health savings account. And those are tied to high deductible health plans. Yeah, you can't have an HSA if you have just a regular PPO plan or something.
Yeah, and so it allows you to park some dollars that you can use for health needs, health bills, health payment bills. But it also, if you don't touch it, it's still in this account. And so what was the stat that you read? Was it 13%?
Yeah. So most HSAs work where you have to have a certain amount in cash available to cover expenses, but above that threshold, you can actually invest dollars. And the study from the EBRI, the Employee Benefit Research Institute, found that only 13% of account holders were actually investing the HSA dollars in assets other than cash. So there, in other words, I look at that as there's potentially a missed opportunity to, again, put in dollars that are invested and tax favored, by the way.
Triple tax.
Yeah.
You get a tax deduction for the dollars going in.
Yeah.
You get tax deferred growth.
You're not paying taxes as it grows.
And then you don't pay taxes when you pull the dollars out. So it's tax-free coming out when you use it for qualified medical expenses. And so some folks use it as just a little savings account that they put money in. And then when they have a medical need down the road, a couple months later, they swipe a card or
have a debit card attached to them.
That's right. But if you can put money in and pay out of pocket for a doctor's visit or for medicine, if it's not super expensive and doesn't break your budget, and let that money accumulate. What Bill's saying is, and your Bill,
I am, thank you,
is if that 13% of people actually take those dollars after they've accumulated enough and they invest it. And so if you can do this year over year and you're investing extra dollars, and usually you want to keep a couple $1,000 in cash.
Most of them require you to do that.
A lot, 2,500, 3,000, something like that, which is usually a fraction of something, maybe half of your deductible. But my point is that when you do get to retirement, those assets that have been invested inside of your HSA have likely accumulated over long periods of time. They've accumulated to bigger amounts than if they were sitting in cash.
Yeah.
And that is a win for you because you're going to have medical needs in retirement, and you can start pulling dollars out tax free to pay for those medical needs in retirement. And so in a way, it's a retirement vehicle.
Yeah, I think you got to think of it that way. And also a couple features there is, unlike, let's say, if you're in a 401k plan and you want to do some Roth dollars outside, like a Roth IRA, those have income thresholds where you can't do that anymore, right? You're not allowed to do that. An HSA, there's not an income threshold, right? It's, you can put dollars you earn into that plan. The other thing to think about is once you reach Medicare age, and if you enroll in Medicare, you can no longer contribute to that HSA.
Yeah.
But it is something to look into, because if you're looking to put away more dollars for your future selves, it's likely as we get older, you will have healthcare expenses, and it's a great way to pay for those, especially when you consider all the tax benefits you get from that.
Yeah, and I'll do one more pivot, Bill.
Okay, let's pivot.
One more pivot, and it is involving an analogy to horse racing.
Okay.
In the sense that, when you go to the Derby, if you ever get a chance to go enjoy it, be part of the fanfare and all that, but look at the horses. Those horses are tremendous athletes, right?
Yes.
And so they're very well trained. And so this pivot is when it comes to financial literacy and financial wellness. And so there's a survey that was done by TIA, and they have a survey that is called the Global Financial Literacy Excellence Center in Personal Finance Index.
Sounds like you made that up.
It sounds like,
say that one more time.
Yeah. It's so this is provided by TIA, and I should say it's two entities, TIA and the Global Financial Literacy Excellence Center.
Okay.
And they provide the Personal Financial Index survey. And so they've been doing it since 2017. And so their 2024 results just came out. But the link I wanted to make was, when we go to Derby, we typically will go to a horse farm and see some of the old race horses of past.
Yes.
And one of the things that is noticeable is some of those horses are still in great shape, and they're a little older than what would be expected.
Yes.
Because they've been healthy all their lives, so to speak. And so when it comes to financial, there's a link between financial literacy and financial wellness. And so when you think of literacy, it's the knowledge of things and carrying out that. The wellness is this confidence and this, I'm able to handle my needs and I'm financially healthy, right?
Yeah.
And so a couple things this result showed is those who are very low or have a very low level of financial literacy are twice as likely to be debt constrained. That kind of makes sense, because with financial literacy is not just the knowledge, but also the preparation and planning, right?
Yeah, and the execution.
Yeah. And so 3.5 times those that are have a low level of financial literacy are 3.5 times more likely to be financially fragile, more than 4 times as likely to lack emergency savings sufficient to cover 1 month of expenses, and more than 3 times as likely to not be at all confident about their retirement income prospects. And then the last that they highlight here is 6 times more likely to spend 20 hours or more per week thinking about and dealing with issues and problems related to personal finances. And so this was a survey sampling 3,876 people, ages 18 and over or older. And so it's just interesting that as you accumulate more and more knowledge and experience, and you learn how to more properly behave so that you don't get hit out of left field or whatever.
Worry and stress. If you're talking about worry and stress, thinking about money, 20 hours a week.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's a lot. That's a lot on your mind.
Yeah. And in horse racing, Bill, the horses that do the best are the ones that don't have anything on their mind.
That's right. And that was your pivot.
That was my pivot.
Okay. That was a fine pivot.
Yes. Any other pivots?
I don't think I have another pivot for this particular, but I do hope that you, Andy, have a great time at the Derby. I know your outfit is going to be on point.
Yes. Thank you. And likewise to you,
I
Bill.
appreciate that. And that's going to wrap it up.
Yeah.
For this edition of Inside the Plan with the 401k Brothers. I'm Brother Bill.
And I'm Brother Andy.
We are brothers,
but not twins.
The opinions of the hosts and guests of this podcast are for general information purposes only and are not to be construed as specific advice or recommendations for any individual. You should consult with a qualified financial professional to determine what is appropriate for you. The advisors of Horizon Financial Group offer securities and advisory services through Cetera Advisors, member FINRA SIPC. Cetera Advisors is under separate ownership from any other named entity. Horizon Financial Group, 8280 YMCA Plaza Drive, Building 5, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, 70810. Advisors of Horizon are registered representatives of Cetera Advisors, a broker-dealer and registered investment advisor.